Just under 2 years ago, we made this video. This was our biggest battery storage installation to date, an epic 23 kilowatt hour 3-phase PureDrive system. However, today we're back here again to rip this system out and start from scratch. I've got some explaining to do. So now we're replacing that with this because our customer wants bigger and our customer wants better, and we're going to give it to him. So this is the new system that we're going to be installing, and there's a reason why we're ripping out this old stuff and putting in this new stuff, even though it's not that old. The technology has come on so much in the last 2 years. 2 years ago when we fitted this system, it was the biggest and best 3-phase system we could get our hands on. However, 3-phase battery storage technology in the UK has come on in leaps and bounds since then. As you'll have seen from other recent videos that we've made, the Sigenergy system is one of the best out there right now because of a few features that it has that this doesn't have. So we're going to get that ripped off the wall, we're going to start assembling this, and we're going to talk about what this system is going to do that the other system can't. Everyone's going to be glad that Lee, Luke and Reuben are here, because in the last video that I did, everyone said, we want to see Lee, we want to see Luke, we want to see Reuben. I think they're bored of my ugly mug. They want to just see some real electrical work being done. So I'll explain what we're going to be replacing this with in a minute, but first let's rip the system out. So that top bit that we've just taken off is what's called the BMS, or battery management system. It's kind of the brain that controls everything. And then we've got a separate inverter. And that's the thing now, you know, with these, so this is a hybrid inverter, then you've got a BMS, and then you've got the individual battery modules, and it's all a bit of a clunky system. But that was the best that we could get at the time. But now there are systems that are much more streamlined, that look better, that everything's built into one nice enclosure, and that's kind of what we're going to be going for in this setup. So that's the PureDrive system out, and we're ready to mount the new system now. So let me tell you about that. Now we're installing the Sigenergy 3-phase 48 kilowatt hour battery storage system. So we're more than doubling the capacity of this battery system and increasing the inverter capacity, because the Solis inverter that we had there was 10 kilowatt. This is going to have a 25 kilowatt inverter, which means faster possible rate of charge and discharge. The customer's got a huge solar array, ground mounted solar array, which we upgraded late last year to an even more powerful one. And the idea is now that these batteries are much more suitable to cope with that, to make better use of that excess solar that he's producing. But there's another thing that's super important, which is one of the main reasons why we're changing this system. And to tell you about that, we need to go to the main incomer. And this piece of equipment is one of the main reasons why we're upgrading the system. This is the backup gateway. Now with the PureDrive system that we had before, there was no capability for whole house backup. And the customers out in the rural sticks, they do get quite a few power cuts. In fact, one that happened recently lasted a fair amount of time, and the customer said he'd really like to have whole house backup. This gives us full house UPS across all 3 phases. It's a new system to the market. We've only installed one other, which you've probably seen a video about in terms of the 3-phase. Single phase we've installed quite a few now, but this is completely unique and opens up massive possibilities for customers with 3-phase supplies who want whole house backup. So I can hear what you might be thinking. Jordan, you disgusting heathen, how could you just throw away such a beautiful battery storage system to landfill and let all of those rare precious metals go to waste? And my answer to you is, don't worry, we're not doing so. So we've got somebody who's actually going to collect these. They bought this system off us as a second-hand system because it is less than 2 years old. The number of cycles is still quite low. It's still got a lot of life left in it, and we wanted to make sure that it's got a second life. So shortly somebody's going to be coming to collect this system to reinstall it in a new location, and it will have a second life, so it's still going to get well used. Now I have a confession to make. I love all of our customers, but this is probably our favourite customer. And the reason is, number one, we've done so much work here, and he always lets us film. We've made a whole series of videos here. In fact, we'll send you a playlist. I'll leave a link in the description below for a playlist of all the videos that we've done at this property. It's a fantastic place to work, but the cherry on the cake is this. He always looks after us so well with amazing snacks from the local bakery that are just mind-blowingly delicious. And to top it all off, he's a channel member. And by the way, shout out to all of our amazing channel members. They support us every month and they get behind the scenes content and early access to our videos. We appreciate you. Reuben's got his assessor checking him up today for his apprenticeship. It's quite rare. It's only the second time he's actually come out to assess him in person, but it seems like they're going to be doing that more. It's JTL, who is like the agency that monitors the apprenticeship, so it's good to see that they're going to be keeping a closer eye on apprentices now and just doing more regular checks. I think it can only be of benefit. So the reason we love this battery system is because it is properly stackable. There's a port on the top of each module here that plugs into a plug on the bottom of the other module, and you literally just stack them. It's super easy and quick. You bolt them to a wall so everything's nice and solidly fixed, fix the ground mounting plate down, and the whole stack goes up really quick. And they got the nice carrying handles and everything. This is our new favorite battery storage system, to be honest, and this isn't sponsored. We just love it. And if you want to see the previous video that we did where we compared it to the Tesla Powerwall, I'll leave a link up here where you can watch that. So this is the gateway, and what we're going to do is reconfigure the whole power setup here. So at the moment we've got a main isolator switch, which is the main switch to turn off the power for the entire property. And then that feeds into these Henley blocks to distribute the power to the different distribution boards. We've got a separate surge protection device here as well. We can actually remove that because the Sigen gateway has a surge protection device built in, which is great. So that will clear up some space, and then we'll essentially take these tails out of here into the Sigen gateway, and then out of the backup side of the Sigen gateway back into the Henley blocks, and this entire property will then be backed up by the gateway, full house UPS. The other thing we need to do is monitor the solar. So this is the existing solar PV system. We've got about 40 kilowatts of solar on this site, and we're going to install this power sensor here, which is basically a little Eastron meter. That's actually going to replace this meter here for the Solis/PureDrive system that we've ripped out, and that is going to monitor the existing solar PV system so that we can see it in the Sigenergy app and know exactly what's going on. So late last year we removed the panels on this ground mount array and we replaced them with bigger ones. Now we took those old panels that were about 10 years old and we shipped them to Mauritania in Africa to donate them to a village to power the village and enable them to bring water up from the ground using electric pumps. Now I've got a little update for you guys because I know a lot of you watched that video and you would like to see the end result. So here's a little bit of footage of what happened over in Mauritania. The 116 panels we ripped out were promptly shipped out to Mauritania, and a few months later they arrived at their destination. And thankfully only one was damaged in transit. So the Cody Earthing Solutions team set about installing these panels in the Mauritanian village. Right now, they're being used to power vital resources for the community. A small portion is dedicated to a submerged pump, which irrigates a 10-acre vegetable garden. But the majority of the panels are being used to power a solar water pump, which supplies water to over 200 acres of land.
benefiting 2 entire villages, a total of around 1,400 people. This initiative is making a real environmental impact, saving about 30 tonnes of carbon each year. This sustainable solution is impacting the local villagers economically as well. Previously, they had to purchase diesel for their power, which was incredibly expensive for them. Now, everything runs using the abundant sunshine, which doesn't cost a penny. A reliable and highly cost-effective solution benefiting thousands of people. For me, that's what solar power is all about.
So now that the stack is up, we've got the inverter on the top, it's all about cabling. We're going to run 2 new power cables from here because the old one was just 6mm cable. We're actually running 16mm cable in for this because it's a 25 kilowatt inverter, so it can use a lot of power. And we're going to run a second cable for the future second stack so that we can put the AC isolator in place ready for the second stack, just to make our lives easier when we come back and install that later on. We've got a data cable to go into this as well. Hardwired Ethernet connection to come in, and we've got an earth cable to go back to the main earthing terminal from the earth rod to give a full backup earth for the property. I know this cable looks really long for the run, but somebody once told me that the most expensive cable is the one that's 10 centimeters too short. And that is the lesson that I've learnt the hard way a few times in life. In fact, my uncle used to work for my dad, and he was a little bit economical, shall we say, so he would never want any wastage, so he'd always cut the cables exactly to the length that you needed them. But then the trouble was, if you had to change anything or pull something slightly, it was always too short, and it ended up costing more because you'd have to pull in a whole new cable. So my motto now is, it's okay to have a couple of meters extra slack if needed, just to give you a little bit of wiggle room. Always overestimate your cable runs. Yeah, I reckon that'll be fine. Will we be able to fit 2 side by side, or do we need to fit them up? Yeah, that's it. So Luke has done a great job of getting the gateway wired in, and that is all on now, so we're running off the gateway. All the house power's back on, however, backup power's not going to work until the battery's connected. We've run our tails from the main isolator into the gateway, out of the gateway back into these Henley blocks. We've got the cables down here, but we're going to need to clip them all down and then terminate them into the gateway, which is a job for Reuben and Luke tomorrow. So we've reached the end of the day, we've got the cables in, there's still quite a bit of work to do terminating the ends of the cables and connecting everything up. So Reuben and Luke, we'll see you tomorrow.
Boom, day 2. We got these cables from yesterday, so we got 2 of the armours that are running to these 2 isolators. We got this armoured Cat 5 as well, which is going to this battery that we installed alongside this Cat 5 that we just run from a network switch. It shouldn't be too bad really. I just got to drill a couple of holes in the ceiling, drop them down into the isolators, leave a bit of a loop in the ceiling so there's just a bit of slack if these ever get moved. Terminate it on the gateway side, test it all. But yeah, shouldn't be too bad, I don't think. What a wonderful day. Have you seen Planet of the Apes? Yeah. So I've just slowly started to lose my mind. I think by the time I'm 60, I'm gonna be like Abe Simpson. Just gonna be that crazy old guy walking around doing stupid things. I think I'm gonna need a bigger boat or some bigger steps.
Right, so we're on the second day now. Yesterday you saw Reuben, I think, pulling these armours, which I got here. So we've got this gateway up, and we're just going to bring the armours down, clip them to the wall, and then terminate them into each breaker.
So basically, cable down from the loft. This is the first one going into this one. Put that away, and then I'll start on the other one. I've just cut it down a bit. I'm going to push a bit of slack back into the loft so I don't have to worry about it getting exactly right. You've got to have a knife for each occasion. It's not an electrician's knife, but it's a sick knife. Real steel. It's pretty swish, and it's legal for anyone wondering. My mate got it for me. It's like right on the verge of being illegal, but it is legal. So big up, but I don't really want to use that on this because you'll probably end up blunting it. So we're on the just as lovely Halterful knife, or Halterful, or however you say it, I don't really know. Oh, this is grim though.
Following on from earlier, I've managed to get this cable clipped to the wall. This one is actually feeding the batteries, and this other one here is just a spare. You can see in the other room we're running a spare cable with an isolator to feed a battery if there's any future batteries put in place. So I'll bring this into the board. I won't actually terminate it. I'll just leave the cables in the back safely isolated. But yeah, I'll just get this one clipped away along with the data connections, get those clipped away. We should nearly be all done in here.
Okie dokie, so this one is put away. Just got to do the other side into the battery, but we need to get some more lugs for that because it's lug connected straight in. Very nice day actually.
I've got the cables fixed to the wall and all dressed here into this gateway. There's a couple of things left we've got to do in this cupboard. The old system here had the meter on with the CTs, 3 CTs for L1, L2 and L3. So I've got to get this meter in here. Obviously this one's a bit small, so we're going to put another enclosure below and bring some of the wiring in there, and then just put this by itself in there just so there's a bit more room. And then from there we've got to get these CTs to go around the solar to monitor the solar. So we'll put those around here, L1, L2 and L3. And these are slightly too small, so I'm probably just going to have to extend them just by cutting them here, taking these ferrules out, extending the cables just so they're long enough to reach down into that enclosure.
So, just using this Klein RJ45 crimper, and on it, it's got the 2 ways to wire up an RJ45. I'm not actually sure what the other one is for, but in England, I think it's standardised that we usually use the B method, and if you're wondering which one it is, I usually try to remember it as B for Britain, but yeah.
And that's it for day 2. Today it's just been me and Reuben. All the cables there, the isolators there, all the gateways done that side, the connections, the CT connections. So tomorrow it should be a nice little day just with Jordan and Lee back, the whole team, just commission it and going through that process. So we'll see you tomorrow.
And here we are for the final day of this install, and it's really just the finishing touches today. The guys have done brilliant yesterday. So we're doing a final few little connections and then we're going to start the commissioning. Like a glove. So the reason we put this fireboard in is just to give a nice smooth surface to mount everything on, but also it's just good for fireproofing. So it's obviously it's on a brick wall anyway, so brick wall's fireproof, but sometimes we'd be mounting on a plasterboard wall or on a wooden wall, and it's just always good as standard practice for us to just have a fireproof sheet behind everything. And then that's also going to help when the customer comes to actually fireboard the ceiling here, because it'll all just fit in together. So yesterday we had our annual NIC EIC inspection where they basically check some of our work and make sure we're continuing to comply and do good quality work. But the customer that we took them to visit gave us these little gifts, and it's a really clever idea. I've never seen it before. So it's obviously it's the shape of a wire nut, so shout out to our American viewers because we don't really use those here. But it's a little container where you can put your wire nuts, or for us, Vargos, for example. So it's just 3D printed. The customer has a whole bank of 3D printers, and when we walked in they were all whirring away, and he's like, oh, I'm making some gifts for you, and this is what he was making, which is really cool. And then there's a desktop one here which you can stick on your desk, and same kind of idea, just a space to be able to store little bits and pieces. So shout out to our amazing customer. So the fun part of these systems is often the planning. The fact that we've got existing battery systems here, we've got existing solar inverters here, means that we can't just come along and slap in another big battery system. We have to get approval from the DNO or distribution network operator to increase the size of the system, essentially, because technically that Sigen battery system and these batteries here could all push power out and force discharge to the grid and affect the local grid. So we have to do what's called a G99 application. But for systems of this size, it's a very complex and big series of paperwork. We're talking, I think, 30 pages or something like that, the application form. And sometimes it can take a long time to actually come back and get approved. Fortunately here we're in UK Power Networks territory and they're really good, so it came back within a couple of weeks, which is fantastic. But some other DNOs like SSEN, for example, are a bit of a pain. They can take ages, and sometimes they can require you to spend a lot of money to upgrade the local transformer and things before they'll let you connect a system. Or they might impose what's called an export limit, where you set in the software a limit that the maximum discharge that can happen to the grid at any one time from the systems. But either way, it means that we have to make sure that the system can monitor everything that's going on, monitor the export and ramp it down if necessary. So let me explain how this gateway works, because you might wonder, how does it manage on-grid and off-grid and stuff like that? So basically your main power from the street, the main incoming supply to the property, feeds into here, okay? This is a 100 amp MCCB, 4-pole. So if you isolate that, all power goes off to this gateway. But then the outgoing power to the house, so all of the circuits you want to be backed up, come off of this 100 amp breaker. Here you have your two breakers for your two inverters. Now we've only got one in at the moment, but we've wired up both. And what happens is when you turn that off, this relay pops out, this one pops in, and it separates you from the grid, but it leaves the power running from the inverter. So the battery system is still feeding back into this bus bar here. So this bus bar has all of the power from the inverter feeding into it, and then what that does is feeds back down through this backup breaker, and it still feeds the house. So the power comes in from the battery and inverter, runs along this bus bar, and then out to the house. But this breaker, even though it will still be off, is isolated because this contactor here pops out. So it cuts off the supply to the grid. Because what you don't want is to have a guy working on the power line outside, he's turned the power off, but your backup system is feeding back into the grid and he can get electrocuted. So it's for that reason you need this separation and this automatic off-grid setup with the relays. And what it also does, it has a neutral earth bond relay where it basically clamps the neutral and earth together, and then it will use our backup earth that we've fitted, our earth rod, as the earthing facility for the property, so that again, if the main earth from the supply is down, we've still got a local earth, because they could have potentially cut the whole cable with the neutral and earth in it, feeding the property, and we would have no earth. So I hope that all makes sense. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments, or if you've got any better explanation than me, leave it all below. So you might wonder, well, why can't I have a normal solar system that works when the power shuts off from the grid? And the reason for that is that the standard for all inverters is to be grid tied. And what that means is when the grid power switches off, the inverter shuts down. That's a safety feature to protect people working on the power lines outside, or even electricians. For example, if I'm an electrician working this property and I want to shut down the power, the consumer unit, to work on it, but there's a solar circuit connected into this, if the inverter didn't shut down when I turn the power off, what's going to happen is this board is still being fed from the inverter and I could get an electric shock. So that's the reason that normal inverters without a gateway like this will not work in an off-grid situation. We always need to install some kind of backup gateway in order to be able to have off-grid power in the event of a power cut. Now, an important piece of the puzzle for any system that offers backup power is an earth electrode to form a backup earthing system. And we put this one in last time when we did the PureDrive system, because we did install a backup consumer unit for that. But now with whole house backup, it's the same principle. You need a backup earth so that if the main earth for the system got cut off, you've got a backup earth facility. And that's what this is. It's an earth rod. Often we do congi discs now, which is like an earthing disc that you bury about 600 deep in the ground. That gives a really good earth reading. But this one's got a fantastic earth reading. We're about 40 ohms on this, which is perfect. So we've reused this one, and that will give us the safety that we need, which is super important. Right, moment of truth. Power on. We need to do the DC switch in here as well. Oh no, that's all good. All good. Sigen app. Add. Whirring into life. Now, where's the QR code? There we go. Scan QR code. Boom. System type residential. Location, all you do is pin that and it finds your location. So straight away we can see our system image, all of our battery modules and the status. And then down here, it says there's a software update. We need to confirm that all the devices have been added to the system. Now I'm not sure because we need to add the power sensor, so we'll do the firmware update first. So that took about 3 minutes, so longer than the 36 seconds that they said, but still really quick, which is what we love about this system. We're just going to confirm that all the devices have been added. Click next. Okay. Oh, power sensor connection. Look, there we go. So it says it's basically diagnosing the wiring of the power sensor to figure out what the system's doing. Wiring diagnosis successful. So we're going to put an export limit in here, which the DNO have told us we need to do, which is 40 kilowatt, and then confirm, and that's it. The system is online. So we're charging at just over 20 kilowatts on pure solar. The battery's already at 91%. It was at 50% about an hour ago, so it's really filling up fast. We've not managed to configure the app to show the third-party solar yet, so we're still working on that with the team at Sigenergy, but overall, it's looking pretty good. Now, this is the ultimate test with this system, the backup power in off-grid mode. What we're going to do to test it is turn the main switch off, which will cut the connection to the grid completely and simulate a power cut, and we'll see what happens. You ready? 1, 2, 3. We're off grid. So now you can see that we're running on batteries. We've got a little X there where the grid is, and the batteries are discharging to power the house. So it says we've got 64 hours of backup power remaining. We're off grid, and according to the current usage, we've got 64 hours of power remaining. So we're going to turn the grid back on now and see what happens. So what should happen is after about a minute, once the system knows that the grid connection is stable, it will kick back in. It doesn't do it instantaneously, because what you don't want is just have a little flicker of grid on and off and then be flickering the power on and off. You'll hear the contactor clunk in a sec. There we go. So in the My Energy app, we've added the Sigen battery as a third-party battery, AC coupled, so we can see the power flow to and from the battery, as well as the existing solar, the grid, how much the house is using, the eddy, the 3 libbies, and the car charger. So we can see all the devices in here. We just can't obviously control the Sigen battery, and that can be done in the Sigen app. It was at this point that I realised we'd made a mistake. The third-party solar was not showing up on the app because we hadn't wired it into the smart port in the gateway. So for those of you who are installing Sigen systems with third-party inverters, let me show you where you need to connect it. By the way, we're here at Solar and Storage Live in Birmingham. We're filming a whole video about this event, so make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see that one. So this is a smart port in the gateway, and what we had done is we had connected the third-party inverter along with all of the electrics in the house off the backup side of the gateway, but we shouldn't have done that. We needed to wire it up off the smart port. So we pulled the tails out from the meter, from the generation meter, and we wired them into the smart port. And what that does is it allows you to then add that third-party inverter as a separate device and monitor through this smart breaker exactly how much power that third-party inverter is using. Now the smart port also does other clever things, like it will allow you to shut the smart devices off during backup mode when the battery gets to a certain state of charge. So the idea is smart loads like a heat pump, for example, or other smart devices, anything that takes a lot of power, you can shut off automatically when the battery reaches a certain state of charge. Almost like having a non-backup side, but actually it is backup or non-backup depending on what you want and when you want it. So just a little heads up there, if you are wiring a third-party inverter to a Sigenergy system, you need to wire it off the smart port, or you need to wire it before the gateway and not on the backup side. So So that's it, a massive upgrade for this client, from 23 to 48 kilowatt hours of storage, from 10 kilowatt charge and discharge to 25 kilowatt charge and discharge, and just to top it all off, whole house backup power, UPS, so that if the power goes off, he can still have the lights and run the heating. That's what we're all about at Artisan Electrics, bespoke power systems for our customers. So if you'd like something similar, there's a link below where you can get a quote from us. But as I said, we've done loads of work here at this property, so if you'd like to grab a cup of tea and settle in and watch some more videos, there'll be a playlist on the screen here where you can watch the whole series of videos we've done at this property, and there'll be another video here where you can watch another system where we did this battery but with solar panels connected directly to it. Hope you'll enjoy, but either way, thanks for watching and we'll see you again soon.